Um, I'm happy to see you. It's nice to be with you after being away for, boy, it's been about 4 weeks. I hope you're all well. Um, so in, Tonight, I just want to say just a few words, maybe a little shorter than usual, and then we can open it up for any kind of sharing or discussion. In the old Pali texts, there's a character named Mara. Some of you know Mara, who maybe you could say is the closest thing to a Buddhist devil. I'm not sure if that's exactly accurate, but he's not really the devil. But Mara is a character who shows up and is a personification. Some people take these texts, take it literally, so you may, but it's really more meant to be a personification of the forces that we all can experience that keep us caught in ignorance and in suffering. That's one way to think about Mara. But in the text, Mara shows up as a real character. And according to the traditional story, on the night of the Buddha to be's enlightenment, Siddhartha Gautama is sitting under a tree meditating through the night. And Mara can see that he's on the verge of attaining his liberation, and his enlightenment, his liberation, his freedom. And Mara's job is to keep people caught in, Mara doesn't want that to happen. He wants everybody caught in just in the ups and downs of life, in suffering. And so Mara comes to the Buddha in the story and tries all these tactics to kind of pull the Buddha away from the path that he's on. And he offers up, he's got these three daughters who are the most beautiful, that they can be, and he offers his daughters to him. And the Buddha doesn't accept that. But so this could be as a personification of lust, of desire, if you will. And Mara tries a lot of different things, and finally he throws his whole army at the Buddha, and they're shooting their arrows. And basically what it means is the Buddha is being buffeted by many, many challenging experiences. We would think of it as difficult emotions, moods, mental states, experiences in the body. Many, many different mental and physical phenomena are coming up that the Buddha is going through. So that's what it really represents. And then what the Buddha does is very interesting. He doesn't fight back with his own army. He simply says, Mara, I see you. Mara loses his power. That's it. And it does go on. There's one more part where then the Mara challenges, by what right do you have to sit here? This is a famous story. What right do you have to sit here, under this tree getting your enlightenment? And it's quite a beautiful image where the Buddha just reaches down with his hand and touches the ground. And you'll see statues of the Buddha he's sitting cross-legged with one hand touching the ground. The Buddha is Siddhartha. He's about to become the Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama is invoking the earth goddess, who comes up and sweeps away Mara's armies. And then he goes on to have he goes through some stages, and he has his final enlightenment. And the idea that can be taken also another way, but it's that the Buddha is grounded. He's finding his place. He knows who he is within himself. There's a stability to the Buddha. And then from there, in which he can just look at all of this, know it, experience it, and just say, I see you. And throughout, there's a number of places, I don't know how many, but where in the Pali texts where Mara will come back. This is after the Buddha is the Buddha, and he'll try his tricks. And every time the Buddha will say, Mara, I see you. And then it just has some image of Mara kind of slinking away, or sitting glumly with his head down, just kind of digging at the dirt with a stick. You know, he's defeated, he's dejected. So the whole, it always comes back to just knowing Mara and seeing Mara, not getting into a battle with Mara. So I want to come back to that in just a few minutes, that image. In the last, just a couple of days ago, I have a 13-year-old son, and out of nowhere, he just said to me, you know, Dad, if, I don't remember his exact words, but he said, you know, Dad, if people felt something like full and complete within themselves, they would never get bored. Just where does that come from? I actually thought I was pretty impressed coming out of a 13-year-old kid. And so it led to a discussion, you know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so about really what is it to be a human being, and how for all of us there can be this something missing, not complete, just in, and even my son was saying something in just pure being. He said something about just the fullness of just being. He said some kind of very beautiful poetic phrase. Later I asked him what it was, he couldn't remember, but it sort of fell out of his, it came out of his mouth in a beautiful way, just the completeness of being. And actually it reminded me of the way my son said it. This is, I'll just read you a quote from the I Ching. If you don't know, I won't go into too much. I'm not an I Ching expert, but I know a little bit. And it's an ancient Chinese oracle. They have 64 different hexagrams, and you would throw these sticks or sometimes coins with different patterns, and you get these hexagrams, and it's an oracle. And out of one of the hexagrams, it's number 58, called the Joyous Lake. And this is so beautiful, but I think it got to what my son was pointing to. So this is not really traditional Buddhist language. It has more of a Taoist kind of feel to it. A quiet, wordless, self-contained joy, desiring nothing from without and resting content with everything, remains free of all egotistic likes and dislikes. In this freedom lies good fortune, because it harbors the quiet security of a heart fortified within itself. So I'll just read that again. I find it quite beautiful. I actually refer to this sometimes, this quote, over the years. It's just been very inspiring. A quiet, wordless, self-contained joy, desiring nothing from without and resting content with everything, remains free of all egotistic likes and dislikes. In this freedom lies good fortune, because it harbors the quiet security of a heart fortified within itself. So for me, I find that quite beautiful. And I will say, some of you may have yourselves experienced, there's states of consciousness that really feel very much like that, where a profound, just, it's hard to say what it is, but you can touch these states. You can do it through meditation. There's drug experiences, lots of things that can get you there. And I think that just that words articulate it very beautifully. So that's something that's possible, but I think the freedom of the Buddha, maybe it is that, but I think in the Pali texts are articulating it in a different way, because here's the Buddha, and even after he was enlightened, Mara could still come, show up. Remember, Mara is really should not be taken as meant to be like a literal spirit being or something like that, but it's a personification of, one way to say it is, of greed, hatred, and delusion in all its different manifestations. Everything that gets us caught in reactivity, any place where we're not free, that keeps us from being free. So of course he got a major attack by Mara and his armies on the, according to the story, on the night of his enlightenment. But through the text, now he's the Buddha, Mara will still show up. What does the Buddha do? Again, he just says, Mara, I see you. And that's it. So the way I take this is, and it kind of gets back, actually I'll come to that, what I was going to say in just a moment, I won't forget, but I want to go back to what my son was saying, because I think probably for all of us, a lot of the time, I don't know each of your minds, so you have to look into your own mind. But I think just to be a human being, so many of us go through so much of our life with a sense of, like something is not full and complete in the moment. There's something missing or off, right? It can either be that there's something like, well, this isn't it. There's something more I'm drawn towards. And so we're kind of moving towards wanting or getting or changing. And, or it can be the opposite. We're also, it cannot feel complete when we're dealing with suffering or struggling in some way. And, I was thinking about it the last few days. I had thrown my back out a little. I'm mostly over it now, but just kind of overdid something. And I was, I couldn't really stand up straight for several days. I was walking around quite, if you've ever had that happen, I could walk around, but I think my upper torso was like at about this angle as I'm hobbling around. And then I was fine like this, just couldn't go like this. But fortunately, it's on the mend. And I was noticing that some of the time, I was just reflecting on, because it was right around the time having this discussion with my son, some of the time I noticed that, I'm kind of like, my back, and I hope it's not going to stay this way. Is it going to heal up? And, it's kind of caught in it a little. But a lot of the time, actually, I was aware that my back hurt. I'm walking around like this. I can't stand up straight. I'm kind of an invalid now, and it was painful, but I wasn't suffering around it at all. And I was noticing in the moment, whether if this went away and I could stand up and into the pain, I don't know if I'd be in any more content or whatever than I am right now. So we all know this. I think it's possible that our state of the freedom in our mind, or the place of inner peace, if you will, doesn't always have to be dependent on the nature of the experience, right? There's something that can sort of transcend that. And so what is this quiet, wordless, self-contained joy, desiring nothing from without and resting content with everything? What does it mean to rest content with everything? That's kind of flowery language, and it sounds kind of quite maybe not realistic and a little kind of idealized flowery language, but actually we can touch these places and we can expand them. I don't know if we can touch them perfectly, but we can come to a place more and more where we do find that fullness that my son was talking about that can be missing so much, just right back in the moment. And there's a couple of ways that I've found that I just wanted to share that has helped me touch those places at least some of the time more, and a little more deeply maybe some of the time. And one is that we can actively cultivate, sort of in the positive sense, bringing in those feelings. That's sort of from a positive way. Or we can cultivate the letting go around the things that are pulling us away, so we don't rest in the completeness. And there's sort of both. There's sort of filling up with something quite profound and deep and beautiful, and there's letting go or emptying out, if you will. There's a filling up and an emptying out, and there's the emptying out or letting go of the things of where it's Mara pulling us, right? Because I think what is it that, this is really what I wanted to get to, when the Buddha saw Mara and said, "I see you," what is it that the Buddha saw, right? According to just the traditional understanding, the Buddha saw clearly and directly, it's a phrase you hear many times, saw clearly the nature of things, the way things actually are, the truth of things, rather than get caught up in our judgments and opinions and everything that clouds the perception. And what you see with all of these things is that this is just classic Buddhist teaching. It's all coming and going, right? It's all changing. We're in a cycle. I was thinking a lot about cycles because I wake up in the morning. I just really like waking up in the morning, assuming I'm not dreading the day. That's a different situation. But I've had days like that. Wake up, I'm dreading the day, whatever it was I didn't like that I thought was going to happen. But most days I wake up and I actually, I've gone through phases in my life where I would wake up with a feeling of depression when I'd wake up in the morning. And that would be my first sense of waking up in the morning. So that was a little different. And then, but I saw that clearly. I remember thinking backwards, I've gone through phases like that uh, where I'm thinking back a time, went on for a while. And, I've dealt with depression in my life. I don't know if I've had what you would call clinical depression, but I've had plenty of things that maybe you would say I was clinically depressed during phases. I don't know. And I knew what it was about. But what I'm talking about now is I wake up and I really was feeling gloomy and had a feeling of depression. I didn't know what it was about. Maybe it was something just chemical in the brain or I don't know. And I came to see that. I knew at that phase that for some reason I had this feeling. And then as that day went on, it would kind of evaporate away. That's just what was going on. That would have been different than dealing with maybe people who really have, chronic depression and it's not going away. I don't want to be disrespectful about that. That's its own kind of challenges for sure. And I was able to see that I'm in a cycle, that these things come in the morning and then it works out its cycle. And now it's this time of day, it goes away, and it seemed to be a cycle. And by seeing it what it was, it gave me some freedom around it. Not that I didn't have the experience, but I just saw the nature of things, in this case, that my mood. And these days I happen to be waking up. I'm appreciative. I don't take it for granted that I've been waking up feeling kind of happy in the morning. It's just like, and I've actually noticed, okay, this is interesting. I remember the times when it was the opposite. And then I notice the day goes by and I turn around, next thing you know, it's noon. Next thing you know, it's mid-afternoon. It's getting dark. It's the evening. Now I'm going to bed. We're in this constant flow. So it's one of the things we see about the nature of things. And it doesn't mean that they're not painful or difficult or challenging, right? But when we see and know what's happening, it can help us to not fall into, get such a battle. In other words, if it doesn't mean we don't want to make changes to things, but I think hopefully we'd all agree the starting point is you start with, you have to take life as it is, right? If we're not able to just start and open up to what's actually real and true, we're already in some kind of reactivity. We're running away, we're running towards, we're in a fight with things, we're trying to hold on. We're all the different things where we're not at peace. And so we have to just start with, well, what's actually real and true? And that's the way I take Buddha seeing Mara. It was, I just see this. I know what it is. I understand it. And then there's some choice points there. Hopefully, we don't always have a choice point, of course, if something's too strong. It may be buffeting us in a way, even though we see it and it's still, we're suffering. And of course, we talk about that a lot. We want to be respectful of when things get really strong. And I often say, I think some of you have heard this many times, that with everything going on, if there's a challenge, we either need to be able to bring up our mindfulness and our stability to be able to meet it, like the Buddha met Mara, or we better find a way to bring down the intensity of what's going on till it hits the level that we can be with it. Because if we can't do one of those, if it's, that's real suffering. And then it may be, that's what we have to know is happening, that we really are in struggle and suffering. And that's when we get through it the best we can, of course, in those times. So I just wanted to share some of those things, and I was just reflecting on, I guess thinking with my son got me thinking of just kind of the human condition, like that in sort of the bigger sense of, it's like, it really is true. And maybe it's an invitation for us to all pay attention to what goes in. Hopefully we're doing the experiment anyway, but if not, it's worth it to take a little time to just notice our own minds. And what is it that drives us towards anything? The traditional Buddhist teachings have this list called the worldly dharmas. I won't go into that too much tonight, but they're just these forces that seem to drive us, about having more pleasant and less unpleasant experiences. And those I'll just stop with that. There's some other parts of the list too, but they're all forces that when they're not seen, they unconsciously drive us. And just with the Buddha and seeing Mara, when we see them, just in the seeing of them and knowing what's happening, we still may follow things. It does not mean, right, that we're going to stop trying to influence the world around us. This last month, since the last time I've seen you, just an example, I'm interested in the Senate runoff for the 2 Senate seats in Georgia. And, I'm trying to bring equanimity to it. Just getting Trump, having him defeated was such a big relief. And I've been putting a lot of effort. I think my wife and I've written several hundreds of letters and postcards. We got some of the mailing lists, and just trying to do some things to help. So that's an example of, it wasn't that I didn't want to take action and I don't care about an outcome, right? And it's not that you have your own relationship with it. I'm just using for myself. That's an example. But part of my work is to either bring a sense of, again, meeting life as it is with equanimity, and do what I can do. And then I have to work with just how things are there. So can I still work to change life? But I guess I'll end with this. What a question. What would our lives look like if we weren't, if our actions weren't being driven by the worldly dharmas? I'm not saying that you wouldn't experience pleasure or pain or gain. These are the worldly dharmas. I'll just say them. Some of you know the list. Gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and disrepute. Let's see. Pleasure, pain, gain and loss, fame and disrepute. And there's a one more. I forgot it. Someone will say when I finish the talk. But it's basically wanting to have less unpleasant things happen to us and more of what we want, and less of what we don't want happen. We're not going to stop. I just don't see us stopping doing that. But the question is, if we see it clearly, maybe there's a possibility that it doesn't have to just be completely in the driver's seat controlling everything, that we can actually, because one of the things I've noticed is I keep trying to make life be the way I want. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's like I only have so much control over things. So, at the end of the day, we get what we get. And what are we going to do with you get what we get? And how would we act if we weren't just bound up in the forces of being driven by the worldly dharmas? Even if we have those experiences, but we had a little freedom and choice, what might life look like then? Maybe that's what the I Ching's pointing to, and it's very beautiful in that little poem I read. So I'm going to stop here.